I want to start by showing you something that I watched. It's only about a minute and a half long, and some of you may have seen it on the news. So if you play that first clip, that would be great.
A little girl sits on her own, sucking her thumb in the middle of a busy shopping centre, looking scared and alone. So would you stop to see if she's okay? Well, more than 600 people didn't. As part of a TV experiment, two little girls were left alone on a London street to test the public's reaction to lost children. In the space of an hour, only one person stopped to see if the child needed help, while 616 walked on by. 7-year-old Uma was taken to Victoria Place shopping centre next to Victoria Station and left on her own, but with tight security around her.
Right, we've got a whole cluster of people.
So hard to watch people just walk by and ignore her.
Her 5-year-old sister Maya also takes part in the experiment, and at one stage a couple find her in their path and simply walk either side without stopping. Their mother, who watched from a short distance away, says it was shocking and heartbreaking to watch so many people ignore her children when they were clearly alone and vulnerable. The experiment has highlighted the fact that many people now feel too scared of other people's perceptions to stop to help a young person. But the NSPCC says an adult's responsibility to protect a child should supersede these concerns. Little Girl Lost, a Police 5 special, airs on Tuesday the 25th of March at 6:30 p.m. on...
Okay, I don't know what your reaction to that was, but I know when I watched it, I was absolutely horrified that 600 people could walk past the little girl and either not see her at all or see her and not ask the question for whatever multitude of reasons that might be. So first you sort of sit there and think, that's terrible. I would never do that. And then I started to wonder in my own life, how many things am I missing as I go about my business, as I'm just getting on with my day, as I'm working through my agenda and my list of things to do? How many things might I be missing that if you were to video my life, you might look and think, why aren't you seeing that? And I wonder what that would be like if someone videoed your life. How many things this week might you have had in front of you in your path that were really important, but because you've got somewhere else to be, or another idea in your head, or something else going on, we're just not seeing it? And it just challenged me greatly, and it made me think of that story of the Good Samaritan. So I'm just going to read it through with you, and then we'll have a little think about it. Oh, I was going to read it from there, but my eyes aren't that good. Okay. Just then, a religion scholar stood up with a question to test Jesus. This is the test. Teacher, what do I need to do to get eternal life? He answered, what's written in God's law and how do you interpret it? He said that you love the Lord your God with all your passion and prayer and muscle and intelligence, and that you love your neighbour as well as you do yourself. Good answer, said Jesus. Do it and you'll live. Looking for a loophole, he asked, and just how would you define neighbour? Jesus answered by telling a story. There was once a man travelling from Jerusalem to Jericho. On the way, he was attacked by robbers. They took his clothes, beat him up, and went off, leaving him half dead. Luckily, a priest was on the way down the same road, but when he saw him, he angled across to the other side. Then a Levite religious man showed up. He also avoided the injured man. A Samaritan travelling the road came on him. When he saw the man's condition, his heart went out to him. He gave him first aid, disinfecting and bandaging his wounds. Then he lifted him onto his donkey, led him to an inn, and made him comfortable. In the morning, he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, take good care of him. If it costs any more, put it on my bill. I'll pay you on my way back. What do you think? Which of the 3 became a neighbour to the man attacked by robbers? The one who treated him kindly, the religion scholar responded. Jesus said, go and do the same. Now, most of you may well have heard that story before. A couple of Wednesday nights ago, a few weeks, Jenny Flintoft shared about how you'd been at a conference or something, hadn't you? And someone had been talking about this story, saying that they'd conducted an experiment, a bit like the one you saw on the video. And they'd got a group of people together, many of them religious people, or they'd given them some sort of religious instruction. And they talked to them about the story of the Good Samaritan. This is a long story short, very short. Talked to them about the story of the Good Samaritan, and then sent them to go from one building to another to talk about the story of the Good Samaritan. But on the way, they'd set up that there would be an injured man between the two buildings. I'm roughly getting this right. There'd be an injured man between the two buildings. And what happened was, depending on how much time they had, largely depended on whether or not they stopped to help. So even when they'd been thinking about the story of the Good Samaritan, even when they were going to go and talk about the story of the Good Samaritan, when they had to be a Good Samaritan, they actually missed it because they were so busy rushing to tell the story about the Good Samaritan. And I just thought, again, how often are we talking about this stuff and talking about this is who we are and this is what we believe, compared to how much of the time we are living that stuff, and that is actually who we are. Because I don't know about you, but I'd rather I could be it than talk about it. Because if all I can do is talk about it, but I can't be it, then what's the point? Because we're just talking air, aren't we? We might as well be, if it's not who we are. Now, a few years ago, Chris shared a story about, I think it was when Connie was quite small. And again, if this is wrong, it doesn't matter. You'll get the point. She was in her kitchen, and it was a sunny day. And I think the sun was shining at the start of spring. And the sun shone through the kitchen window onto the... Oh, look, there we go. The sun shone through the kitchen window, and the angle it came, you know, this time of year, you see all the muck you've not seen all winter. My oven is filthy and disgusting. Now, it's not been like that all winter. But all of a sudden, the sun's shining, and there it is. Because of the way the sunlight catches something, it can look suddenly mucky. And I remember you'd said to Connie, that's the problem with the sun. It shows up where all the muck is. But what you realised, and I remembered this story this week, is that actually, because of the sun shining on it, that meant you had a clear view to clean it off. And we coined this phrase back then, we need to do what the sun shines on in the moment. Some of you may remember that and said, you know what, we can't deal with everything that might come into our life, but there will be things at certain times that just the light shines on. It might even be the light shines on and it looks a mess, but in that moment, if there is something in our path, however messy it is, the light is shining on it, because in that moment we are being given an opportunity to face that thing, to deal with that thing, and to do something about it. So I wonder tonight what the sun is shining on in your life. Tonight as you sit there, what are the things that are like in your face, in your path as you sit there tonight? The things that seem like the biggest obstacles possibly, the things that you're struggling with, wrestling with, the things almost that you think, I have tried ignoring that, avoiding that, but it's just always there. Perhaps tonight this is your moment when the sun's going to shine on it, where you might just be able to move that thing a little bit forward. Now, I'm going to show you another video that's interesting in the light of what Beth was talking about the crowd. And this is a video about the bystander effect. And again, there's been lots of studies done. They're really interesting. It's really interesting reading around about this stuff on the internet. There's been a lot of studies done on the effect of what happens when things happen and we're in a crowd. Okay, watch it. It's really good. It's about 4 minutes long, but I think you'll enjoy it. Now, if you look on here, first of all, you'll see this graph. You'll see what it sort of means as you watch it. But the studies have shown that if you see something and it's just you by yourself, you're quite likely to act. If you see something and you're with a small group of other people, you may act or you may not act. If you are in a larger group and something happens and the other people don't do anything, chances are you won't do anything either. Or if the other people do something, chances are you will join in. Have a little watch at this, it's really interesting.
Watch a pickpocket in action. The woman with the rucksack is his victim, and the man in the grey top on the left is the thief. Except they're both acting. In fact, everyone in the queue is with us, apart from the man in the blue shirt. As the thief moves in, will our bystander notice? He clearly has. What's more, he's seen that other people in the queue have noticed too. Now, what's he going to do about it? The answer is nothing. After all, no one else in the queue reacts, so why should he? Chances are you wouldn't have done anything either. Whatever the man in the blue shirt thinks he's seen, he's influenced by the apathy of everyone else in the queue. In more serious situations, this could have disturbing consequences. Liverpool Street Station in London. A drunk lies on the pavement. In fact, he's our actor, Peter, but these passers-by aren't to know that. And since he looks the worse for wear, not critically ill, they ignore him. Helping would be inconvenient or even risky. He lies there for 20 minutes and no one raises an eyebrow. This time, we've dressed Peter as a respectable city gent. How long before he's rescued now that he looks the part?
Hello, sir. How are you today?
I'm all right, thanks.
6 seconds. She even calls him sir. And suddenly, everyone's a good Samaritan.
Do you suffer from epilepsy?
No.
While you're lying on the floor in the rain?
After a couple of minutes, even the police turn up.
I would just hate to be in his position of feeling ill and nobody helping and walking past, so we'd just like to check that he was okay.
I thought, well, it's wet, so he must really be ill because he's going to ruin his suit anyway.
Our actress Ruth takes Peter's place. She's not a drunk, but she's also not a city gent. How long before she gets help? Four minutes have passed, and 34 people have passed.
People don't really want to know. They just haven't got the time. Well, they have got the time, they just don't want to get involved.
But it's more complicated than that. If the street were deserted, a passerby would probably go to the rescue. But these strangers have silently formed a temporary group with a rule: don't help. This woman, for instance, has clearly spotted Ruth, but she conforms to the rule and does nothing.
You all right? You all right?
Watch what happens, though, when someone else helps.
You all right? You sure?
She suddenly finds herself in a different group with a new rule: to help.
She don't look well, does she?
You all right? Yeah. You sure?
First I thought she was dead. Then I sort of checked to see if she was breathing or not. And I looked around and I couldn't believe that no one had noticed her because there was a bloke sat there just absorbed in reading a newspaper.
Peter's now having the same problem. This time, we've swapped his suit for casual clothes. He's not drunk, and we've asked him to act like he's in pain.
Help! Help! Help me! Please, somebody! Help me! Help me, somebody! Please help me! Help me! Help me! Help me! Please, somebody help me! Please, somebody help me!
It's quite shocking, isn't it? It's quite shocking. I mean, what might be the reasons why those people haven't? Possible reasons, you know, they really don't have time. This is the things they'll tell themselves. And we tell ourselves too. Somehow not my problem. I'm not going to be able to fix it or do anything about it. Or sometimes it's we don't feel like we can face it. Things that sometimes come up in our life, you're almost like, oh, I'm not capable of sorting that out. I'll just leave it for someone else. We might think it's a waste of our time because it won't make any difference. It was going to make a difference to the businessman, but the same actor dressed as a homeless person, well, what's the point in doing anything about that? It was seen very differently. And no one else is doing anything about it, seemed to be a big one. And also we might come to the conclusion that, oh, that's not worth spending my time on. And yet these things are in our path. And surely if it is in our path, surely God help us to see the things that are in our path. And to actually, Jesus talked one day to a group of people. He said, you strain a gnat and swallow a camel. And what he said was, you're so busy with the things in life that are actually quite small, making sure all those things are sorted, that you then actually end up missing something that's massively, massively important. And I really felt today that for all of us, we need to pray that God will give us the wisdom to be able to see the things in our life that are important, to not be swayed by our attitudes that we have towards certain people, certain types of people, certain stereotypes that we have, to actually see the people who are in our path and respond to those people in our lives. We sometimes don't take, there's that expression, isn't it, that we don't take time to smell the roses. We're so busy rushing about, we don't always take time to actually live life. And Jesus talked one day and he said to some people, look, you're worrying. He said, consider the flowers. Look at the flowers. They're not striving, they're not stressing, they've not done anything. And look how beautifully they're clothed. And he talked about how sparrows who fall to the ground, that Jesus knows every one of them. He said that there's even somehow the hairs of our heads are numbered. And he talked about that much detail and how we're worrying about things. And then just before this, he talks about, just after that story, he talks about Mary and Martha and how Martha's rushing around like a headless chicken trying to make sure everything's sorted, and Mary takes the time to sit and listen. And there's these lovely illustrations of how Jesus says, you know, see the little things and see the detail. That lovely verse, be still and know that I am God. All very wonderful. Now, there's other parts of the Bible where it doesn't sound quite so easy and fluffy and flowery and poetic. So let's just look at this bit, because this is quite challenging. Right, not that bit. An argument started among the disciples as to which of them would be the greatest. Jesus, knowing their thoughts, took a little child, had him stand beside him. Then he said to them, whoever welcomes this little child in my name welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. For it is the one who is least among you all who is the greatest. Master, said John, we saw someone driving out demons in your name, and we tried to stop him because he's not one of us. Don't stop him, Jesus said, for whoever is not against you is for you. As the time approached for him to be taken up to heaven, Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem, and he sent messengers on ahead who went into a Samaritan village to get things ready for him. But the people there did not welcome him because he was heading for Jerusalem. When the disciples James and John saw them, he asked, Lord, do you want us to call fire down from heaven to destroy them? But Jesus turned and rebuked them. Then he and his disciples went to another village. As they were walking along the road, a man said to him, I will follow you wherever you go. Jesus replied, foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. He said to another man, follow me. But he replied, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. Jesus said to him, let the dead bury their own dead. You go and proclaim the kingdom of God. Still another said, I will follow you, Lord, but first let me go back and say goodbye to my family. Jesus replied, no one who puts a hand to the plough and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. That's challenging, isn't it? Now, as I was thinking about this today, I thought there's tons that you could say about that. But just a very quick summary. For me, the things that Jesus was saying here was that this cannot be about our position with each other. It cannot be about competing over who's better, what position we hold, who's the greatest, who's the least. That cannot be part of what becomes an obstacle on our path. It can't be about punishing people who don't do it how we do it or agree with what we're doing. It can't be about our own comfort. So something about whatever journey we're being called to walk in and however being called to follow, some parts of that are not going to be comfortable. We're not going to like it. It's going to actually cut across a little bit, maybe what we wanted to do and how we wanted it to be. And it's not going to be about somehow fulfilling our agenda in that moment. There's going to be something to give up, because life, if Jesus is in the kingdom business, he's in the life business, and life matters now. Now, the bit that I've not been able to stop thinking about all week is the let the dead bury their own dead. And I thought, what? If I said to my boss at work, you know, my dad has died, please may I go and bury him? Can you imagine if my boss said, no, let the dead bury their own dead, you come to work? Or if you came to church and said, I'm away next weekend because I'm at a funeral. No, you're here doing kingdom in church. You can't. I mean, just think about it. It doesn't sound particularly reasonable, does it? So I had a little read round about this today, and this is very, very exciting. Very exciting. There's lots of different interpretations. I've picked the one I like. You can read the others if you want, but this one, he did explain it for 3 pages, so I figured he'd thought about it. But it's really good. Now, at the time when this was happening, and there was, different burial rituals in those days that are different to ours, it wasn't the same. There was like a first burial and a second burial. So the first bit was where you'd sort of put them in the tomb straight after they died, and there was various rituals around that. And then there was this thing that developed that was like a second part of the burial process. And this could take up to a year. because I know this is a bit gross, but what would happen is, once you put the body in the tomb, you had to sort of wait, I'm sorry, this is horrible, but you had to wait for sort of the flesh to decompose off the bones, and that could take up to a year, and that was almost during that process, you had to almost wait for that second phase, for the flesh to go off the bones, and then once they're with the bones, you do something with the bones. But this is what's amazing. What they started to believe is that this second part somehow atoned for the sins of the person. So what they believed was that in that process building up to 12 months, all of that flesh decomposed, somehow that was paying for the sins in that person's life. And that period mattered. So what the suggestion was by this guy who was interpreting it was, he wasn't talking about let the dead bury their own dead as in the first funeral bits. This guy wanted to go through the whole 12-month process, possibly. This is an interpretation, but we're allowed to talk about it. He wanted to go through the whole 12-month process of dealing with the bit that was about how this person was somehow going to be atoned for his sin through this ritual. And what Jesus was saying was, no, don't not follow me because you're undertaking some ritual to deal with sin. I'm your answer to sin. And so that line becomes, look, don't spend any more of your life trying to deal with any ritual to deal with your own sin. Follow me and my way of dealing with your sin. And doesn't that now make sense? It's brilliant. So what he was saying was, look, any way you're trying to fix yourself, any way you're trying to deal with your shortcomings, all that effort and energy you're putting into trying to fix yourself, will you follow me? Will you actually follow my way of doing it? Because that's going to work for you. And all that dead stuff, that ritual stuff, the stuff you've been trying, just let it go. Isn't that amazing? I loved it. Right. Now in Hebrews 9:27, Anthony's talked about this a lot. He said that it was appointed for man to die once, and then the judgment. And so what happens is, when we start dealing with death and the ritual, you end up at this place called judgment. But the point about that verse that he has spoken about many times is after the word judgment, there is a comma. And after the comma, it then goes to talk about the fact that, yes, there's the judgment, but then comma, Christ has dealt with this all. So the judgment bit is sorted because actually your answer is Christ. So if you don't get past the judgment bit, you end up caught up in the death bit. Now this was my challenge today. Some of you in your path, you have stopped at a judgment and you have forgotten about the comma. And you've stopped at a judgment, and inside of you, it's eating away at you, and you feel like you're dying on the inside. It's because you've stopped at a judgment and forgotten that there's a comma, and after that comma, there is something else. There is a grace. So for some of you, what's in your path, and I know this is relevant for some of you tonight, what's in your path, if you are stuck at a judgment, that you've reached a point where you're like, this isn't working, this is, what you're being faced with today, what the sun is shining on you today is, can you believe that there is a comma? That there's something that's going to come after this, that there's a grace that will turn things around for you. Never ever stop at a judgment. And the word that kept coming to me today was this word, pity. Somehow, I was thinking, what a pity. But I was also thinking that it sounds a strong word, but it's the word that kept coming to me. You think, I pity the areas of my life where I stop at a judgment. I pity the areas of other people's lives where they stop at a judgment, because that's not the end of the story, and it's sad. It's desperately, desperately sad that that's where some people stop, because we have been judged in the most wonderful way possible. We have been judged to be accepted and forgiven, and we have been judged that there is nothing that can ever separate us from the love of the Father, and everybody has been judged that way. So why would anybody want to stop before that judgment? Why does anybody who calls themselves any kind of God follower wants anybody to be judged for their shortcomings? Do they not have any? Because I do. Do they not have any? I don't understand why anyone wants to stop there. I really don't. Because if where my life stops is at my shortcomings, then I am lost. I am lost. And I want there to be something past the judgment that could come on my life. I want there to be something past that. And it makes no sense to me why anybody wants it to stop there. Let the dead bury their own dead. For people that want to believe that there is salvation through ritual and that somehow we can handle their own sin, they can have it. But I don't want it. I don't want it. I want life. It says this. Let me show you those pictures. Where are they? I liked these. I talked about this a few weeks ago because I read a book. I think someone else has mentioned it as well. Sometimes this is how we live life. We sleepwalk. Let's show the next one. This is absolutely hilarious. Can you read that? I kicked my what does it say? I kicked my waste basket over to watch the paper spill out and for a moment, just briefly, felt what it means to be alive. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Sometimes the things that we live for, what is the point? Can you show the next one for me, Robert? Look at that. That reminded me of Benji, that picture. You just think, life. Let's just be in the business of life. Show the next one, Robert. I like this one as well. Look, this was a quote I saw, and it sounds depressing, but it's not. A man who lives fully is prepared to die at any time. Now think about that. What it means is that the man who lives fully is saying, I am going to not waste a minute not living. And I waste time in my life not living because I'm too busy. I'm too busy faffing about with my list of jobs and my list of tasks because they need doing. But do they need doing at the expense of me living? Is it worth it? Or do I have to do a bit more living? Even in the good, the bits, the ugly days, I can still live them, couldn't I? You can even live the ugly bits, but at least you're living them. At least you're in it. At least you're in it. The priest and the Levite in the Good Samaritan story, they somehow believed that injured man wasn't a priority. Where were they going? Where were they going where they needed to be? And they somehow complied to the rules of what good priests and Levites should do. And applying those rules meant that they missed the point. And how often am I missing the point? And Jesus also challenged their attitude to the Samaritan as well, because Samaritans were nobodies. So as he's telling the story, he's saying, look, the people that you look down on are actually doing a better job of being Christ-like than you are. That's what he was saying. And God forbid that's us as well. Those people, the people in those days who were loyal to God, thought Jesus was a glutton, so he was indulgent. They thought he was a drunkard. They thought he was a crazy person. They thought he was in allegiance with the devil. That's what they thought of Jesus, because their loyalty to God was actually an illusion. It was actually an illusion, because if they'd been loyal to God, they would have followed Jesus, because that was God. Jesus was in the business of growing people. He was in the business of saying, look, I don't know what my ritual is going to be today when I wake up, but whoever I come across, whoever is in my path, I'm going to somehow put something in their life that grows them spiritually. Now, this is the definition of love that Scott Peck talked about. The will to, I'll let you read let's look at that lovely, that's funny as well, look. When they discover the center of the universe, a lot of people will be disappointed they're not it. Right, look at this quote. Can you read that? Yeah. This was Scott Peck's definition of love. The will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. And in every situation, Jesus heard the heartbeat of the Father. He helped all where the light was shining for him to understand more of the extravagant love of Father God. And surely this is a measure for us. Is what I'm doing going to grow me in the love of God? And is it going to grow you in the love of God? And if it's not, let's not do it. Let's go do stuff that grows me in the love of God and you in the love of God, and let's all do that. So then we all grow in the revealed God's love in us. We all grow each other in that. And I think that would work. I think that would be great if everybody did that. I don't understand why anyone would not want to do that, except I do, because we all get our heads screwed up and wobbly and we make it that, don't we? We make ourselves the center of the universe. That's the problem. That didn't always look pretty. Sometimes growing people meant challenging their attitudes by turning tables over it, whipping people into shape, saying no, calling Peter a devil, and calling the religious snakes. So sometimes to grow us, he has to tell it us straight. And we don't like it. Sometimes he says to us, grow up, stop straining your gnats and swallowing your camels, stop trying to fix it, follow me. And we don't always like that, but it's what we need at the time. Now, the other week, somebody else mentioned Balaam's donkey. There's a guy going one day on his path, we're on the path, and he's wanting to go a certain direction. God's saying, no, don't do that. There's an angel blocking his way, but he doesn't see it because he's decided. The donkey sees the angel, and so every time the donkey moves forward, he realizes there's an angel there, the donkey won't move, so the guy whips the donkey. Show that next picture, Robert. This is funny as well. Look, the dazed donkey. So he's beating the donkey, making the donkey completely dazed. Now, there's no point just whacking the donkey. There's no point just sort of looking at that thing in your path, getting angry at it, wishing it would happen. Perhaps you stopped where you are because there's something that you need to see where you are. And perhaps instead of fighting these processes in our lives, we should climb off the donkey, have a good look at it, and actually think, what am I going to do about this and move forward? Now, Jennifer, in one language means pure. In another, it means female ass. So, whether you... That's what we are, Jen. So you can either see me as pure and godly and listen to me for that reason, or I'm your donkey. Some of you, you need to... There's something in your path. So stop getting mad at it, stop shouting at it, stop beating it, stop screaming at it, stop resenting it, and face it. Face what it is, because there is a life lesson in there. If Jesus is in the business of life, there's life to be found in there. There's a growth to be found in it. It can grow you. Instead of breaking you, it can make you. So let that thing grow you. Or stop at judging it. Judge your donkey. Judge me if you want. Judge your donkey and stay where you are. Okay, I'm nearly there. This is the quote from me. This is my quote, put it up somewhere. Many Christians who comply with Christian laws seem to find ways to be unloving, disconnected, and judgmental. What about those who know and follow Christ? To me, somehow, if we are going to follow Christ, there isn't room to be unloving, disconnected, and judgmental because there's something after. So if we are those things, and when we are those things, because let's be honest, we can all be all three of those things. When you catch yourself being those things, say to yourself, I might be being a Christian, but I'm not following Christ. So you can have ticked all the boxes, but that's really important. So when you are around others, do they become unloving, disconnected, or judgmental? Or do they somehow grow in their love and understanding of God? Because perhaps that will be an indicator whether you're a Christian or whether you're a Christ follower. Now, this is my summary. Let's do something fantastic in this church or let's go home. Seriously, let's do something fantastic or let's go home. Who wants to do something fantastic? Because if we do not have a different spirit, and if we do not find a different way to wake up and be alive, I will go home because I can find other things that makes me feel temporarily satisfied, but I am not yet fully free, and I want to be. And I need you to do that for me and help me grow in that, and you probably need me to do that for you. So should we do it, or should we go home? Because enough nonsense. If we decided to stop, this was also in a book, we decided to stop complaining about the church we saw and set our hearts on becoming the church we dreamed of. Now, this is not a self-help group. This is not a self-help group. What I mean by this is not how can we get together and somehow in our own strength and energy help each other. Give me a minute. I believe in a risen Christ. And I believe in his transforming power. And I cannot transform myself. I have tried, and I can't, and there's still places in me that are broken. But one thing it says in Psalms is, sorry, I know it's really annoying listening to someone crying. I'm trying. Oh. In Psalms it says, create in me a clean heart. Renew a right spirit within me. And this is the verse that in another version is, God, shape a Genesis week out of the chaos of my life. So this isn't something we can do. We need miracles on the inside. We need miracles on the inside. Those areas and those things in our life where we are blocked and there is a path we're trying to journey on and we're hitting the obstacle. We're not going to fix that by self-help. We need some miracles. We need some miracles on the inside and some transforming. Do you know what, Steve Craven? I promised myself if I saw you while I was preaching, I would tell you what I thought when I was writing this. When you were a young lad, do you remember when you were baptised? I remember it vividly. How old were you? About 14. You stood down here in a T-shirt with a truck on it. And I said to you, there is great capacity in your life and you're designed to carry a heavy load. And as I was preparing this, I thought, I need to tell you that call is still on your life and you are designed to carry a heavy load and there is something incredibly special to come out of your life. So you keep going for that. You keep believing that because God is not done with you. And I thought to myself, I don't know if that's God, but I promised if I saw you while I was preaching, I would say it. And I did. So there you go. As I was writing my conclusion today, Daniel was watching the Smurfs. And this, as I was literally thinking, how do I end this? This is what it said on the telly. She's only a Smurf as long as she chooses to be. And I thought, I'm only a Christ follower as long as I choose to follow Christ. If I'm not following Christ, I'm not a Christian. And I'm only a Christ follower for as long as I'm following Christ. And if I stop following Christ, I'm not a Christian. And I can say I'm a Christian, but I'm not one unless I'm following Christ. And then the next line she said was, someone was sort of talking about what we're going to do, how they might not stick with it, it might all go wrong. And this is what the line was. This was literally on the telly. Papa never gave up on me, so I am not going to give up on them. And you know what? Papa's never given up on me. I'm not going to give up on them, whoever my them are. And how I wanted to end tonight was I really wanted Connie to sing that song about Be Born in Me. Because the conclusion I came to after all this is unless we get a pure heart and something new born on the inside of us, we can talk about it all we want, but we need a transforming power. And whatever area in your life you feel like you have died, somehow you're stuck at that judgment, there's something in your path, or if you just feel like you're sleepwalking your life and you haven't been awake for it for as long as you can remember, something can and will be born in you tonight because love will go that far. Love will go that in your life. So as you listen to Connie sing, this is, let something be born in you. You can't rationalize it or understand it or make it happen. Allow something, open up your life and say, God, I don't even understand what you can do, but I invite you to bring me to life, to wake up in me so that I can see what's in my path, deal with what's in my path, and stop sleepwalking my life. So Connie, okay, are you going to then come up after that?
Thank you, Jenny. I can see why you were very moved, because what you had to say was very, very significant. And she actually said a quote from this book that I was reading today, and it was this. At that moment, we decided to stop complaining about the church we saw, and we set our hearts on becoming the church we dreamed we could be. Now, I'm going to be very honest with everybody. Over 11 years ago, this place went through a very difficult time, and it was mostly my fault. And I'm quite willing to put my hands up and say it was my fault. And certain things that we went through, we came to the point where we either had to say, we give up, or we build something that represents the grace of God on our lives. And that's what this is about. And we have maintained, Anthony and I, and the leadership here, the directors, and all those who I would call the carriers of the dream, the revolutionaries, whatever you want to call yourself, we maintained that we were a little bit like Jesus. He said he set his heart as a flint towards Jerusalem. It might have meant that it was going to cost him his life, but he said, that's where I'm going. And I say that without any apologies tonight. We set our face as a flint towards the church that we were dreaming of. A church where the gospel that was being preached was actually good news. I think you've heard a lot of good news tonight. That's what we're about. And I don't make any apologies for this. I know that we're not always understood by everybody, and that's fine. We don't want to be like everybody else. The thing up there that says running the race marked out for us is for us. We don't ask anybody else to be that. This is what we feel that God has put in our way. But the reason why I'm saying this is because I felt today that I was supposed to reiterate this as part of the leadership of this house, that the way that we are going, we talk about the train. The train comes into the station. Some people get off. Some people get on. And that's fine. We have no issue with that. But where we are going is our journey. We're running the race that's been marked out for us. And that's not always a very popular way. And we're not wanting to either big that up or put that down. It's just that is our journey. And I'm going to reiterate tonight that we are going to build at the Rock the church that we are dreaming of. The church that we're dreaming of. I love the phrase that, you know, we want to express in our world the Abba of Jesus. Now, Abba, we laughed about it the other day because Danny says to me, the only ABBA that people know nowadays is the ABBA that sung Waterloo in the 70s at the Eurovision Song Contest. I get that. But ABBA means daddy. The ABBA of Jesus is the God who is a God of love, a God of unconditional grace, of mercy, of kindness. Oh, long-suffering, all of that. And we want to make sure that in this place, that is the message that's been spoken. And as Jenny was speaking tonight, my heart was just excited. I'm asking you, I hope you felt the same. If you don't, that's fine, but I'm with it. And that's what we're wanting to express here. So, we're going, aren't we? We're on our way. Let's get back on track, be born in me, because I do believe this is the cry. It's not enough to be even a corporate thing, and I'm glad that we're a community, but it has to be individual, doesn't it? It has to be something that in our hearts we say, look, this is what I want, this is where I'm going, I don't care what it costs me, but this is the journey that I'm willing to go with my life. And Connie's about to sing that now. So when she's done, we will be over because we don't want to prolong it any longer. But as she's singing this, will you at least have a moment? Will you be awake? Because that's important, because it is true that we sleep through so much in a very sort of dazed way. Be awake and say, what is this challenging me to be? And am I willing to take up that challenge in this day, in this age, in this city, in this community, with our families, with our friends, with our neighbours, etc. Isn't that what matters? Okay, so let's take it away. Thanks, Connie.
Everything If God is pleased with me, why am I so terrified? Someone tell me I am only dreaming. Someone help me see with heaven's eyes. And before my head agrees, my heart is on its knees. Holy is He. Blessed am I. Be born in me. Be born in me. Trembling heart, somehow I believe that you chose me. And I'll hold you in the beginning, and you will hold me in the end. And every moment in the middle, make my heart your Bethlehem. Be born in me. This time we've waited for the promise. All this time you've waited for my arms. Did you wrap yourself inside the unexpected? Just so we might know that love would go that far. Be born in me. Be born in me. Trembling heart, somehow I believe that you chose me. And I'll hold you in the beginning, and you will hold me in the end. And every moment in the middle, make my heart your Bethlehem. Be born